All right, you guys, we are live here on the Metro Jiu-Jitsu podcast. I've got two amazing men. We have Professor Muhammad and the notorious Chris Carlino with the American Grappling Federation. How you boys doing today?
Doing great. Doing great. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here.
So Chris, we were talking a little bit pre-show. I know we had to reschedule a couple times. I appreciate you being flexible with that. But man, I mean, your status just right off the rip is the fastest growing jiu-jitsu tournament in the nation. Is that correct? The American Grappling Federation?
I think so. I think we've grown significantly. I mean, we've been around for a while, but we've grown pretty quickly, at least the past couple of years, as far as expanding from both coasts and such. And then we're starting to push back into Europe again, post-COVID.
Europe. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I know. Uh-oh. We lost Mohammed. He'll be back on in a second, I'm sure. So I know. Yeah. I mean, when you came, it went from. I remember just one time seeing you, and then I was like, it seemed like you guys were all over. Like I'd never heard of the AGF, or maybe you were only in Texas. Like Alvarez was familiar with you guys. And
Right.
then, so how long exactly have you been around? And how'd you guys get started? Like, tell us a little bit about your grappling experience, how you got started, things like that.
Okay, so we've been around for 12 years now. And so it started off with me training jiu-jitsu. So March will be 16 years for me. And I started training under Brandon Quick. We were a 10th Planet affiliate at the time. And so we started doing that. And I'm a software developer. And so Brandon was always doing tutorials on teaching stuff. And he came up with the idea of doing apps, uh, for at the time just for the iPhone and Apple devices. And so I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I do programming. Let me help you with it. And so we started this company called Killer Apps, and we started doing the apps for about, I would say, probably about a year at the time. And finally we branched over to the other devices, Android. And it was kind of fun, but then it started getting really saturated. I mean, there would start being more and more apps out there. And so it kind of became apparent that we needed to do something else. And so to get in, how did we got into the tournament? So Brandon had a super fight. He was part of like an 8-man super fight, and that's back when Fight to Win was doing tournaments, just regular style tournaments in Texas. And I went with my wife, and we were there just cheering on Brandon. And we kind of just like looked around. We're like, there's a lot of damn people here. And I've always been an entrepreneur. I've owned quite a few businesses prior to then, and so I kind of looked at the numbers and I'm like, okay, so they're paying this much to get in, they're paying, this much to compete. Wow, they're making a fortune here. And so it kind of got my wheels turning. And then fast forward a little bit, probably a couple months later, Brandon decided to do a tournament with another company and these other partners. And he asked me to help out a little bit. So I started doing some of the graphic works and some of the tournament setup stuff. And so I got to kind of see what it was like. Well, they did their tournament. That didn't really work out very well long term. And so we kind of talked about possibly us going together, and we branded as Killer Apps Jiu-Jitsu Tournament as kind of a way to leverage the popularity of the apps into the tournament scene. And we were kind of like using that synergy of promoting one with the other. And
What,
so,
Chris? Not to cut you off. What was Killer Apps like? What was on? Was it like just technique tutorials, or like
yes,
what was Killer Apps?
yeah, so each app was basically a theme. So you had one that was on chokes, another one on arm attacks, another one on, like back attacks and such. And so it started off just being Brandon being the instructor with a different uki. And then eventually we got to the point where we started leveraging our relationships with other professors and the tournaments. So like we did one with Pete Wilhelm out of Triton Fight Center. Um, and he was based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had him do a series as well. And then I think we had another one on, I forget, it's been so long now, but we had other apps out there with other professors teaching other things. And so that's what Killer Apps is. And so each one was like, so the chokes one might have uh, like 30 different techniques on how to do a darce or guillotine or any other type of choke from there.
Well, that is so. It sounds like early BJJ Fanatics is kind of what that app was, like early BJJ Fanatics, but it's maybe you just bought the app and like I mean that's a I'd never heard of the app, but that I mean if you 12 let's see 12 years 2012 that would have been really early. Like I think I still had
Yeah.
Salo DVDs in 2012 to be honest with you. Like that would have been really early for something like that. Was how did you pivot? So you tried to obviously leverage Killer Apps tournaments, and then I'm guessing the tournaments just far outperformed the success of the app, and then you just made a move.
Yeah, because I mean, we got to the point where there was just so many apps out there. And so it became, our sales obviously went down, and it kind of came important for us to make that switch and become, the American Grappling Federation. And so we sat there and we brainstormed a ton of different names, and we just wanted, I mean, because back in the day it was Naga, and that was the brand. It was easy to remember, easy to say. You didn't have to remember the full, name. You just went off the acronym. And so we played around with a bunch of names, and came across AGF, and kind of stuck from there. And it was the American. We wanted to be an American company, and then it kind of went from there.
Naga, I don't think people will realize just how prestigious Naga used to be. Like, man, if you got a Naga belt, like you might as well have been Stone Cold Steve Austin coming home with that thing over your shoulder. Like that was the real deal, dude. Like when and Naga and then we're talking about Arnold's coming up. I think Naga. Oh boy, I don't know if they used to run it out of Arnold's, but Arnold's was the event. Like that was like, oh dude, he took first at Arnold's like back in 20. Like
Well, I
that was the
remember,
real deal, dude.
yeah, my first tournament was a Naga tournament, and so
Yeah,
we
sure.
we 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 really believed in ourselves. We thought we were the man, and we went in there, and I wanted that sword. I wanted that sword so bad. I
Yeah,
just pictured myself, and I make the joke. I was going to sit there and cut carrots with it in the kitchen,
yeah.
just sit there chopping my big huge sword, and and so it was a great experience. I mean, I can't complain about it, but at the time, and it was fun. I lost my first match and never competed in Naga again.
Yeah, Naga's. I mean, we
So
still go. Like we're going. We still go to them, but I mean, just like because when they show up, dude, they should like. I mean, we'll talk about branding. Like it looks legitimate. Like they're semi trailers, and they've got the guy who, at the time that picture was taken, I'm gonna guess he was 29, who's probably 50 now. Like but
Yeah.
like he's like topless, wearing the belt, and it looks like bona fide. Even if you know nothing about jujitsu, you're like, hey, like that's the real deal. So I mean, I think you guys did it though. I mean, like we don't even. We just call it AGF. I literally had to remind
Yeah.
myself, what does AGF stand for? Okay, American Grappling. Like so it works.
So Chris, when did the AGF hit their stride? Like, at what point in the last 12 years did you guys feel like, okay, um, like this thing is going to be around for a while, and you feel like you had the brand recognition? And what do you think it is that separates AGF from other tournaments? Because when you walk into each venue, you get you get a feel, you get a vibe, and AGF has its own type of um, feeling in there. You can call it. Some of them are because of the size of the venue, some of them because of the setup. But AGF, in my opinion, has a very specific type of feel, like like different than any other tournaments. If you could touch on that, what do you think that is? Have you done anything to make people feel that? And again, when did you guys feel like, okay, we are in the top tier of tournament venues?
Okay, so to touch on the first one, I felt like we kind of had something once we did our third tournament in Oklahoma. So we were about 2 years in when we finally started branching out of Texas. And so we weren't profitable at all. We went, the first 2 years losing money. I was supporting it with, my real job, which was as a software developer. And so once we moved over to Oklahoma, and they became kind of our big market at that point. They were even better than Texas, Dallas. I mean, I'm based in Dallas, and they started surpassing Dallas. And that's when I kind of realized, you know what, okay, I might be able to make a living doing this.
Mm.
And then we expanded from there. We went to Missouri, we went to, Arkansas, and we grew these markets, and we started getting a pretty loyal following. And so that's when I realized that, we had something really good. And touching on your second point was, so I want to be known as a customer service oriented company. I want that to be kind of like our flag that we wave out that everyone recognizes. That's our banner. And so I want everyone to have a similar experience, whether you go to Detroit, you go to Dallas, or you go to Oregon. I want you to be able to know that you're going to get the same product every step along the way. So we spend a tremendous amount of time training staff and trying to make sure that the experience is pretty much the same across the board, and training our refs, our ring coordinators, our weigh-ins, everyone, hoping, that everyone does the same exact performance, so it delivers a product that everyone can recognize as the same AGF experience. And so, does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's like I said, it's you're very consistent from venue to venue. I remember the first time that I met you. We flew in from Detroit, and Alvarez had like 100 registrations.
Yeah, yeah, it was a
Uh,
big tournament.
yeah, we had 100 registrations, and I walk in with my daughter, and she uh, either wasn't registered or the registration was off. And I know you guys do a very good job on sticking to the program. Like you don't add brackets and throw people in and out. But we had just flown in, and um, yeah, I remember you helped us kind of finalize her registration there. That was I don't know if you remember. It was a
Yeah, I
few
do
years
remember
ago.
because that was
Yeah.
actually a very tough tournament because it was a Sunday. I think it was the Dallas Winter Classic in January. And we
Okay.
normally it's a Sunday tournament. It's the first tournament of the year for us, and it's typically 300 people. It's not a very big Dallas tournament for us. And that particular tournament, Alvarez had messaged me, and he's like, I want to send the whole squad. I want to send everyone. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And so I know he imported you guys in, and we had Soul Fighters there. We had the gym that I'm a part of with Magnus, and it's like we had all these people there, and we had like 500-600 people at the tournament. And so I was pretty stressed out because, we usually once we hit 500 competitors, we like to go a 2 day, just to kind of spread it out so you don't have so many
Yeah.
people crammed into that building. And then I don't have to, I mean, there's a limit to only how many mats I could put in that building. And so I don't want you there till, 7 o'clock at night. I don't want to be there at 7 o'clock
Yeah.
at night. And I gotta,
Yeah.
and I'm 30 minutes away from the venue, and I get to sleep in my own bed. But it's like, I try to be respectful of that. And so I was stressing because it's a Sunday tournament. I think we had to be out of there by 6 or something because they had like the 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 rest of the courts were being used for basketball later in the day for a church league or something. And I was like really stressed out one. But I remember meeting you, remember talking to you about it and at the tournament. So yeah, I had forgotten about it until you mentioned it, and then I was like, oh yeah, that is where we first met.
Yeah, I remember. Not, I don't. I think it was that one. I think we got one of the team awards.
Yes.
But Alvarez has like he's got an entire wall of awards. And when I first met him, I'm like, I want that. I
Hmm.
want that. And he gave me that trophy, one of the trophies that we got at a big tournament, and we have it in our gym. So let me ask you. You've seen a lot of competitors. You've seen a lot of teams. Is there anything you can share on like what or how like you notice certain teams are better or winning more? It's always funner when you win. From sitting on the backside of where you're at, what separates a successful team from the others? And what do you think that, are you seeing anything in any trends in competing in competition that is showing up regularly over teams that win? You know, whether it be like, it could be anything, like technique, series, numbers. Like, what is it that separates successful teams from winning team tournaments? Besides the numbers, because, you know,
I find that the teams that specifically train for us, our rule sets and stuff like that, they know how to score points. They know how to I don't want to say game the system, but they know how to win within that rule set. Those are the teams that do really well, as far as a team. Um, there's one school that's in Texas. I won't say names or anything, but they do really well. They don't they don't seem to teach like fundamental jujitsu. They teach advanced jujitsu to their students. And so when you have a gray belt that knows lapel guard or knows how to berimbolo and do all this really cool stuff, they do phenomenally well at these tournaments. And it doesn't matter which tournament they go to, but those teams do really well, especially in the lower levels, and they seem to advance really quickly. I'm not saying that they don't know fundamentals, but they know all the advanced stuff, and kids just aren't trained on how to deal with it. If somebody sits there and inverts on a 7-year-old, you're like, I don't know what to do, and they're just sitting there, and then next you know they get swept over and they're mounted, and then they're just stuck. So, but yeah, it's the teams that prep for us, and there's teams that specifically teach advanced stuff to their kids.
I'm offended, Chris. I came here. You're talking to somebody who, like, my entire thesis as a coach is like the fundamentals will carry you there. Like the fundamental, the fundamental. Like I if you ever catch footage of me berimboloing, you better save it, because like either something went terribly wrong or I have outclassed my competitor by like leaps and I don't even know if I could fold my body in half that way, but I know
That's
what you're
funny.
saying about getting caught in like this weird, like getting caught in this weird position that you're just, you're not prepared for it. It's kind of like a distraction. It catches you off guard, and that's all. That's all it takes is just that hesitation of 2 seconds to be like, what are we doing here? That'll happen.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. But yeah, I'm a big fundamentals guy. I don't know all these fancy guards or anything like that. I teach just basic fundamentals. I'm a very connected jujitsu type instructor. I don't like because my philosophy is I never was fast. I was never athletic. I don't find myself particularly strong. So I'm not going to teach you something that I can't do. I can't sit there and just spin around you and do all these fancy things. I'm going to go up there and I'm just going to basically smash. I'm going to sit there and put a lot of pressure on you and make you just. I want you whenever I get off you, I want you to be exhausted. So yeah, if and I've got some kids that come train with me because I teach at my house. I have a big, huge, we call it the AGF headquarters gym. And I've got like an 18 by 18 mat out there, and I teach classes there to
Oh
whoever
wow,
wants to show up.
that's sweet.
And so yeah, so I have two kids that come over there, and they're like all super fast and all this other stuff, and they're playing a very disconnected jujitsu. And I'm like, you guys are more than welcome to train with me, but this is not what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you the other way. So if you run across somebody that's trying to smash you, that's very pressure oriented, I'm going to teach you how to deal with that. And I'm going to teach you how to sweep because I have a very sweep oriented game too. So it's like I want to teach you my style of jujitsu. And so I go in there and then I put them in situational drills, and I'm like, okay, you're in this position. This is your win condition, for each one of you. This is what you need to do. And it's just so funny seeing them immediately, both of them will disconnect and they start doing their old stuff. I'm like, wait, time out, guys. I need you to try and do what I'm teaching you. Just try. I know it's going to be hard, but and then so fast forward a little bit. One of them went to ADCC, and she messaged me and says, hey, I did, she starts explaining what she did. She was playing half guard, and she's, start playing butterfly. I'm like, oh, sweet. I was teaching that. I taught you that. And she goes, and then, so what'd you do after that? She goes, oh, then she just did what she knows. It's like, okay. I mean, but at least you did a little bit of it.
What's your opinion on gi, no gi? Where are we going to be in 5, 10 years plus? Is it going to circle back around Like, is the traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a gi going to pick up steam again over no gi? I mean, everybody has been on a no gi bandwagon for a long time. What's your opinion on it now, where we're going and where we're going to be?
Okay, so for the
I see
last
you
two
smiling,
years, I've
David.
I almost had a follow up. I almost had a follow up question. And why is Nogi better? But I held my tongue. I'll
well,
let the man answer. I'll let the man. I understand my audience. I'll let the man answer.
I'm Team Gi. So as I said, I started with 10th Planet, so I was purely no gi, and then we switched over to the gi, and I was like, oh, this is terrible. I'm dying in this thing. And then now I'm old, so it's just the gi is great. But anyways, answering the question, over the past 2 years, I've noticed a switch. It used to be predominantly gi competitors. If you had 100 competitors, you'd have 100, you maybe have 95 doing gi and maybe 60 doing no gi.
Wow.
Now in certain markets, it's for almost every market, it's even. It's pretty close. You got 100 doing gi, you got 100 doing no gi, but in some markets, Dallas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, uh, a few other ones, you're noticing that switch. Now it's 100 doing no gi and 80 doing gi. But with the kids, it's still gi dominant. So I think it's switching to no-gi. I mean, the school that I attend has switched to 95% no-gi now. Used to be 50-50, and now the only gi day is Wednesday. And
Wow.
so they recognize that the no-gi is superior in their opinion. And that's fine for them, but that's not my
Could you
preference.
repeat that last sentence? The Nogi is what? What was the
I
last
said
sentence?
they're deluded into thinking
Oh, I
that
see.
no-gi is
I
superior.
see. Okay. All right. I got you. Okay.
No, I mean they just favor no-gi, and that's fine. There's schools out there. There's quite a few schools out there that are no-gi only, and they're MMA. There's Next Generation with so there are no-gi only schools, but I don't think the gi is ever going to go away. I think that as people age, the gi becomes a little bit more favorable. It slows down the game. Um, but I think that there's the wrestling influence is slowly, migrating its way into jiu-jitsu, and I think that it's slowly going to become closer as far as what people start doing. And then of course it's like with tournaments, there's ebbs and flows. Like I can have a team come for 6 straight tournaments, and then they take a competition break, and I don't see them for a while, and then they get back on it. The tournaments just do, that. And so I think the same thing is going to happen with go no gi and gi. I think it's going to just be a resurgence, and then the gi is going to come back, and then no gi is going to make a push. So I don't think either's going anywhere, but I think there's just going to be popularity that just you know follows, like, what is it, a bell curve? It just
Yeah.
goes up and down.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. So you've been in tournaments for 12 years and you've seen obviously people just starting out in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competing at the black belt level. Um, Competing could be a very nerve-wracking experience for people. Maybe the first one. And some people, they get the bug and they really enjoy it and they become competitors. What could you say to people thinking about competing that have never competed before, and maybe even people without like the wrestling experience or things like that? What how can you talk to them a little bit and explain why this might be a good idea? Why AGF? And yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of things that I tell people as far as whenever they're competing. Nerves obviously play a huge part in it. And so I tell them, it's like you're nervous up until you actually step on the mat. And once the match goes, as long as you're not hyperventilating when you're out there, it's you're gonna calm down. It's gonna get better out there. So I said, don't worry too much about that. My biggest concern as a tournament, owner, was like I'd go out there and I'm like, oh my God, everyone's gonna be watching me. I'm the owner of AGF. Everyone's gonna watch my match, right? And so I would get kind of I get really anxious about that. And so I remember competing, and then I remember watching my video back because I always analyze and criticize myself, you know, a lot when I competing. And I'd watch the video, and there's maybe 10 people sitting there, three are on their phones, two are talking to each other, and maybe I have maybe one or two that's not my wife watching the match. And I'm like, wow, nobody gives a crap.
No
It's
one,
like,
nobody
there's no big
cares,
deal.
dude.
Nobody cares.
No,
And so,
nobody cares.
nobody cares. So I use that story whenever I talk to people. I'm like, nobody really cares. If you go out there and you get beat, your coach, your teammates are all going to pat you on the back and say, good job. You did a great job. If you win, they're going to pat you on the back and they're going to say, great job. The only difference between winning and losing is whether you post the video on Facebook or social media. You know, that's really going to be the only difference between you winning and losing. The other aspect is I try to stress two things. So one, I say, obviously you have your training at your gym, you at your home gym. And I don't know how you guys feel about cross training. I don't know if you guys are for it or against it, but I find that whenever I travel and I go to other gyms and I visit other gyms, that's probably the closest experience I have to competing. That's the next step uh, short of competing, because I get an opportunity to see how my game works against another person that has no clue what I want to do, and I have no clue what they want to do. I'm not studying game. Like if I go over and I roll with you guys, I don't watch your film. I don't care if you have this really fancy game or if you're very smashy. I'll look at you and I'm like, okay, he looks tough. He's probably going to just, wrestle me down. He's going to sit there and try and take me back, whatever. But it doesn't matter. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try and implement my style of jiu-jitsu. And I'm going to have fun doing it. And you're basically going to just see how your jiu-jitsu does. That's one step short of going to a tournament. The only difference is there's people standing around and you paid to go in. That's really the only difference. And so that's kind of what I tell people as far as, preparing for competition, or just getting those nerves out of the way. Is just if you can and you have an opportunity to cross train, then, maybe that's something that you might want to consider doing to prepare, or doing open mats where, you're going against people that aren't necessarily your belt rank, that you don't normally train with. So I don't know how your format is for your classes. I don't know if you allow just anybody to go with anybody, or if you try to keep, like-sized people together or ranks together. I know there's some schools that do that where they only allow white belts to roll with white belts, and but and that's fine for safety purposes. But if you want to get some of that experience of seeing how you do against other people, then it's kind of helpful to be able to try and go against other people that you don't normally go against.
That is, you mentioned cross training, and especially while traveling, I I miss like the level of anxiety. Not, I shouldn't say anxiety, but it is visiting a gym out of town as a black belt is such like a tricky thing, like because I'm not just gonna walk in. Like I'm not just like there's zero chance I'm gonna walk into a gym unannounced with a black belt and be like, hey, want to roll? Like that is the worst way to do that, Like I'll reach out to the owner, on Facebook, like, hey, here's who I am, and here's why I'm in town, and here's what I don't want them to go like freaking Gracie challenge on me and like feel like they need to defend something, and they inevitably do, like they feel like
Oh
there's this
yeah,
home
yeah.
home court advantage of, oh, I remember this. I'm gonna leave the because I've shared where I trained, so I'm gonna leave even the city nameless, but I was visiting a gym in a nameless city, and I'm like, if you know me, like I'm like super friendly and nerdy, like I don't give off tough guy vibes at all. And there was just this brown belt, and I was, he was like my second or third match or something. I was like, hey, dude, do you have a match? And I shit you not, Chris, this guy was like, and just like nod his head over the corner. I was like, shit, like I'm like, this is gonna, like, this guy is the gatekeeper of the room, and I'm like, and we tangoed, and yeah, he was cool afterward. He tried bullying me with like heavy clubs and stuff, and then he found out I could wrestle, so we were cool. But it's like super. I think it's almost worse, because like they feel like they've got the home court advantage and they have something to defend, and you can't go in. I don't go in balls to the wall because then it looks like you're trying to like come into someone's school and like start beef, you know? So it's like there's this fine line of like I have to go hard enough to where they don't think I'm a punk, but not so hard to where like I look like a jerk beating up their, whoever, So like that's I think cross training it's a good point. It's actually I think in some cases it could be more stressful. What do you think, coach?
Uh, there's always that balance, like you said. You want to make sure, like, you want to drop in from out of town, but like, I think inevitably everybody has to kind of represent a little bit. The older you get, the less you have to prove. But but yeah, everybody wants to build a star off your back. Special, the more color you have, the darker it gets, the more they want to build a star off your back. But I think generally speaking, like the jiu-jitsu community is very, very, it's like it's very friendly. It's physical, but it's very friendly. Chris, where's uh I'm genuinely curious to know this. What is it that AGF? Why is AGF a top tier tournament in your opinion? What is it that separates you from everybody else? Why should they register for the next AGF tournament?
I think the consistency of the product is pretty important, but I'm pretty OCD about certain things. I like to have uh, I want it simplified. I want when you go to another tournament and you go and you're wondering like, what do I do here? I don't know what to do. I want it to be very clear what to do. So I try to provide every step. I try to provide so much information, for this is your process. You have an A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You go through these letters and this is your process. I try to give everyone, an idea of exactly what to expect and how to go about doing it. The other thing, and I think that makes us really different from other people, there's some tournament organizations out there that will travel their refs, right? So you see the same refs, and that helps. That's obviously a great benefit because the refs know the system, they understand the rules, and they understand the whole process of how everything works, and that's great. But we're one of the few organizations that actually travels our staff. So our ring coordinators, our front check-in, our pit, all these people, well, you'll see the same faces every single year at most of these tournaments. And you can travel to, like, so we're looking at going to Grand Rapids. You'll probably see the same people there too. You can go down to, I don't even know my geography. I'm terrible at geography. What's another city that's close to you that we go to? You'll see the same staff there. And some of those people from Oklahoma, some of them might be from New Jersey, so we'll bring those in. And so that's one of the things that I think separates us from other events is that it's going to be a consistent product. And I hope that it's an easy to understand and it's a fun, enjoyable product. And then
As
because of that whole nature, we're a family. Like I have a Christmas party every year, and almost all my staff flies in or drives in for it. It's like we're all together. We spend time together. We go eat dinner together. It's like we spend a lot of time together.
how does like let's talk about that was one of my questions and I um that that that's a logistical nightmare for me. Like knowing cuz your
Me
stat
too.
like it's yeah, well, yeah, he's like me too. Like you're a lot of them are school owners. Like a lot of your refs, I'm thinking of Brian Cutts, I'm thinking of Mike whose last name is evading me right now. Like
Westcott.
yeah, yeah. Like they're school owners and then
Hmm.
and I'm like how does that work? How does that work? Like how do you find them? Like what incentives? I can't think of what you would have to offer me. It just me personally, right? Like to be like, hey,
Hmm.
we need you to come with us. Or Brian drove a truck from in like Washington State to Detroit or something in a
Hmm.
snowstorm. I'm like,
Yep.
like what? You what? Like I can't imagine. Like so where do you find them? How do you I mean you don't have to go into like the financials of it, but like compensation or incentive to even do that because again they're like they're school like they're legit school owners a lot of them and it's not like I don't know if it's a full-time thing for these people but like how does that happen? And then, for anyone watching, like, are you, if they want on board, because one thing we do see a lot of is when you do something right, people want to be a part of it. So if they wanted to be like on the road with you guys, are you currently hiring? Is there a process where they can put their resume in the,
Okay.
in the process? But like, kind of go into that a little bit, because that is just crazy to me.
Well, we have some really good Kool-Aid. So, um, to be serious though, I think what it is it's buying into seeing, they know what we're about. I mean, a lot of our staff comes from people that have been competitors with us, or they've, had their students competing with us. They want to be a part of it. Um, Almost everyone that's worked for us that's still with us, we were friends with beforehand. And it's the relationships. And, Muhammad touched on this. There's a lot of nice people in jiu-jitsu, and it's very easy to go walk into a gym and create a genuine friendship with another person. Yeah, I don't know any other place that you can do that. I can't. I used to do CrossFit. I don't know anybody from CrossFit anymore. I don't hang out with people from CrossFit. But I can guarantee you that if I go visit you guys at your gym, you know, we're gonna have a bond. We're gonna have a relationship. We're gonna reach out. Hang on, sorry. We're gonna have a
Please tell me,
relationship.
was that the Street Fighter soundtrack? Please tell me, was that the
No,
Street?
that's the default ringtone. I'm sorry to disappoint.
I thought that was, dude. You almost gained so much. You should have just went with it. You almost gained so much
Yes,
street
it's the
cred
street.
for,
Yes, of course
yeah,
it's the
Street
Street
Fighter
Fighter.
2.
No. But getting back to what I was saying, the relationships. I go to you guys, visit you guys. I'm probably going to go eat dinner with you guys. We're probably going to hang out at some point. It's stuff like that. You guys come to Dallas. I'm going to try and meet you guys up for dinner, or we're going to try and meet up at a gym and go train or something. It's that's the foundation to how we have such a loyal staff. I think personally, and I think we're just good people. We appreciate each other's company, and I think they see a future. I mean, I won't get into the financials either, but it's like, Brian's a tournament director. Uh, Mike Westcott's a tournament director. They both started off as ring coordinators. It's like they started off as competitors or coaches that brought their students, and they saw something and they wanted to be a part of it, and they see something out of it. And then, I don't just sit there and say, "Oh, David, you want to run tournaments for me? Come on, I'll go ahead and give you the whole, Northeast United States." No, you got to pay your dues. You have to have started off somewhere. You had to have shown an interest, and it's not just showing up and, "Hey, I have done my work. Peace out. I'm gone." It's, "Hey, do you guys need any more help? Hey, if you guys need me at this tournament, I can come. You don't even have to get me a hotel. I'll sleep in my car." It's like, I don't want you to sleep in your car. I don't mind getting you in a hotel, but it's like, I want to see that desire. And those are the people that grow within the company. We had probably 250 different people work with us this year. And of the 250, probably about 80% have done multiple tournaments with us. So and the thing I do stress is, if an opportunity comes where you can work for the AGF, take it, because it's hard to get in sometimes. I haven't taken a single new person to work at my Texas or Oklahoma tournaments in probably 2 or 3 years, because it's the same people coming every single time to work it. And it's, if an opportunity, and I'm like, "Hey guys, I need someone that wants to learn how to be a ring coordinator, or I need somebody that wants to be a ref trainee." They're jumping at it. I could put a post out right now saying, "Hey, I'm training for ring coordinator in Dallas. Who wants it?" And I'll probably have about 30 messages from people saying, "I want it," because they know that it's going to be part of a family environment, and there's going to be opportunities for them to travel and do work. Like Brian loves to travel. He loves to go to all these different tournaments. He loves to compete at all these different tournaments. He loves the relationship side of it. He loves being able to see new cities. We have Orlando Castillo, who's from, Florida. He's like, "Hey, can I do the Oregon tournament?" I'm like, "Dude, that's like, 5 hour flight for you. Why would you want to do that?" He goes, "Because I've never been to Oregon." It's like, okay, yeah, let's see. Let's see if we can do it. And so, and Brian, speaking of Brian, he went to Europe with Brandon to help run 2 tournaments there. That's an experience he's not going to get. from just teaching at a gym. You
Chris,
guys know how hard it is.
Chris, do you have communication with other tournament venues, tournament like directors? Um, in the jiu-jitsu industry, school owners, sometimes are very friendly. Sometimes they're like, no, you're my competition. I don't want to see you or hear from you. Do you,
Yeah.
in the tournament venue, how is that community like between owners of tournament venues? What kind of talk and communication do you guys have?
I try to have an open dialogue with them, friendly. There's some organizers that we sit there and we talk to each other and we're like, hey, um, we if we find we have a conflict, we work between the two and we work it out. Then there's some that just don't care. They don't care. I'm gonna put my date here. Some get very territorial, like, oh, this Detroit's my market. I'm gonna do whatever I can to make sure that your event doesn't succeed. So I'm gonna put my date on there and try and make people have to decide between you and me. And that's terrible. That's a terrible way of approaching business.
So
Is
so I
that is
go
that
go ahead, coach. Sorry.
Chris? Is that bad for the consumer like me and people who want to register for a tournament? If you guys both want to do a venue on the same day, is that bad or good for us, the consumer?
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible for everyone. It makes you guys have to choose between one or the other. And so you guys may say, hey, I want to go to AGF. And this other team may say, hey, we're going to go to the other tournament. And now we both have less competition for you guys. You guys are now fighting your own teammates because you have no one else in your divisions. And it just creates a terrible experience. I don't want you to pay for, whatever you guys are paying for a tournament and not have matches. It's like that's just stupid. And so it's a terrible business move to try and put anything closer than 2 weeks. You want to be at 3 weeks, if not more, to try and give you guys. I mean, you got terms are expensive. I can't expect you to spend, $100 on Naga and then 2 weeks later spend another $100 on me. So we got to try and do what we can to try and keep the space as much as possible. There's only so much money that you guys can be expected to spend on a tournament.
So you have AGF has something really cool, and I also want to point out the past two of our guests. I talk to parents a lot about jujitsu in general, and they're like, little Johnny is, he's not athletic. Um, that's your boy, right? Like I wasn't the athlete. The past two guests we've had on were engineers. A form of engineer. I think Coach Greg or Professor Greg was boy, either mechanical or electrical. And then you have yourself, so like I think that's an important detail in that, that little bit of neurotic behavior, we'll call it, I think goes into the jujitsu and the ability to kind of like focus on that. And which brings me to my point of, can we talk about I believe it's the program or the like you have a program algorithm AI thing that like scans all of the other tournament organizations, their locations, their dates, and finds vacancies where you can plan your tournaments out a year ahead and not cause a conflict so as not to create bad blood. Is that you like coded something like that, right?
Yes, yeah. So there was nothing out there that I saw that helped me kind of, I mean, like if I wanted to see what's on the schedule, right? And I wanted to, okay, I need to fill a date. Okay, let's go to this location. And now I got to go to every single site, every single tournament organization that I'm aware of, and go say, okay, they're here, they're here, they're. It just became really difficult to do. So I decided, let me just let me write a crawler that just sits there and just extracts that data and it goes through and it puts it in a spreadsheet for me almost. And so I can sit there and I can select. I actually have it to where it lets me know within a certain radius, any tournaments within a certain mile radius. So it's like I know that in on this particular date, I have a 3 week window where I could put a tournament right in the middle of it. That's going to be that there's no tournament within 6 hours of it.
Man.
And I'm like, okay, great. Then that becomes an available location for me on that date. And
Yeah,
so I think that's important. You know,
that's huge.
it's big for me. But then what it doesn't prevent is if
People
I
coming
run
after
this
you.
program and I start doing it in January, and I'm like, okay, well, there's not many tournaments out there, so that kind of becomes difficult. But we still got to plan our schedule. We try to just use the same dates that we use every single year, so that kind of makes it easier. That okay, we're always going to be at, in Detroit in December and July, for example, right? And so if we consistently come there every single year, then it just becomes kind of like easier for you guys to know, okay, we're going to do AGF in December and July, right? But it also helps other tournaments that might be aware of it. Like, let me look at their past calendar and see when they came here and try and plan things out and stuff like that. But as you said, it doesn't prevent people from adding a tournament later, seeing that hey, I'm on December 12th, and they decide they want to go December 7th or whatever the math is for that.
Sure. Yeah,
So
that
that's
is
the
I
that's the downside.
yeah, but I mean sharing that, I think it even shows like the effort involved, right? Like the effort
Hmm.
involved and you know, you guys again, you've done a lot of things. And only because we've been following you, for years attending, competing. Um like you do a lot, like even adding ringside. I don't know if they have them in Detroit. Does every tournament have your ringside mat recorder, like built-in mat recorder? Because up until this point, it's been you would hope a coach or someone had it on their phone. If they had a dispute, they
Oh,
bring it to it. But now you've got like your actually own. And I've never. I don't even know. I mean, I know that the federation has footage, but not that you can replay like on the spot. So. Does every tournament have those mat side, like instant? We'll call them instant replay cameras or whatever that you put in.
yes. So
That's sweet.
about 5 years ago, I was really pushing to record every single match. And I wanted to do being able to link a match to a profile to a competitor, so you can go back and see your matches and be able to see, your match. So just in case somebody didn't record it. And so I really start working towards writing that code. And it's a one-man machine, so it's really a slow process. So it took a long time to finally get there. And so last year was the first year that every single tournament was able to start recording matches. And then
Hell
we
yeah, that is
initiated
so
the
sweet.
replay. Yeah, we initiated the replay challenge a few years ago too, but we would allow you to provide footage. So like, hey, you threw a challenge because you didn't like this call. Okay, well, give us your video evidence to show us, your supporting evidence that the call was wrong or it's missing information or something. But then now we figured out how to actually do a replay on our computers on our camera side, and we can actually watch our video footage of the match and stuff like that. So we use that primarily to 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 work on the challenge. So we don't need now we don't need to go hunt you guys down to, oh, do you have a better angle? Does your video show this or stuff like that? Now we just have ours. And if it's something that's only visible from your perspective, because like we're on this side, you're on that side, so we'll watch ours. And if you're complaining that, something happened, he tapped, but we can't see it on our side, but you have a video clearly showing that he tapped on your side, then we'll review your video on that. But for the most part, we use our video for that.
That's awesome. So I want to respect your guys' time. I know we only got a few minutes left. Coach Muhammad, do you have any final questions or anything you want to discuss or ask Chris?
Yeah. Um, from watching the tournaments on your end, does sandbagging still exist? And is it a problem like it used to be? And what's your opinion on white to black? Is there a minimum time frame? When we first started almost 20 years ago, it was like 15 years, and from 20 years ago to now, it's more common seeing people move up from white to black in less than half the time. So, what's your opinion on that? Uh, and then sandbagging in tournaments. Is there anything that you could touch on in that, maybe for the people thinking about competing? Like, well, I'm just a brand new blue belt. I'm just a brand new purple belt. What can you touch on that?
Okay, so I I don't really think I don't like sandbagging in the way that most people interpret sandbagging. I think there's different levels to everything. Belt ranks are subjective. Your gray belt is not going to be the same as my gray belt. You know,
Yeah.
you're going to have your criteria for what you consider to be a gray belt. I'm going to have mine, right? They're not going to be the same. Then you have how many days a week does your kid train versus my kid, you know? And so sandbagging is just, I personally don't care. What I don't want is I don't want someone going down and misrepresenting their skill. Like, don't sit there and give the wrong age or say that you're a white belt when you're a gray belt or something like that. Compete at your rank, you know? It's what your professor wants you to do. And if you happen to be winning at gray belt, eventually your professor is going to promote you to gray black or yellow or whatever, you know? But just compete. You know, a lot of people sit there and say, oh, it's just a $3 medal and stuff like that. No, ours are a little bit more expensive than that. But yes, it's just a medal. Who cares? Go out there, have fun. You know, see what your jujitsu's like. That's all that matters. If you win, fantastic. You lose, fantastic. Hopefully you had a great time doing it and you learned something about yourself. You know, competing is going to help you in real life. You're going to face obstacles on the mats. You're going to have difficulties trying to do what you want to do on the mat. Jiu-jitsu is never easy. I've never gone out there unless I'm rolling with a kid. You know, I can go roll with a white belt and you know, they're not going to be super easy. They're going to be fighting their life, you know, for their life. And I need that challenge, you know, because it translates into real life, you know, being able to overcome adversity. You know, if something happens and you got to be able to react to that adrenaline dump coming in, you know, coming in. It's important. So who cares if they're sandbagging? You know, just go out there and have your match. You know, that's kind of my viewpoint on it. As far as ranking, as far as white to black, I think the mats don't lie. You know, I think that if you're going out there and you're really good at jujitsu and you're doing well, I think that you know it you should it's okay to be ranked accordingly. You know, if you're going out there and you're a blue belt and you're competing really well at blue belt and you're dominating, who cares if there's a time frame? You know, if you know the techniques that your coach feels like you need to know to get your purple belt, give him his purple belt. If it's only been a year, so be it. If it's been 6 years, so be it. You know, that's just my philosophy on that.
Did
That
Chris, I'm sure you heard about the um I'm sure you heard about the truly sandbagging European Nationals champion.
yes,
Yeah,
that
so
was the blue belt
yeah,
that went to white.
yeah, so like
Yeah.
this is an example of sandbagging, right? Like
Yes.
he
Yes.
was an actual blue belt. Yeah,
Yes.
I can't even say it without laughing. He was an actual blue belt, promoted to blue before the tournament, and then he competed at the European. I think it was the Open. Right? I don't know if it was Nationals, but an actual
Is,
blue belt, and he registered at white. Like that's actually sandbagging, right? He wasn't just
I
a
would
is,
agree.
solid.
I would.
Yeah.
is there another side to that story? Because I don't, it doesn't make sense to me. Anybody in their right mind would ever do something like that. Like, I'm very curious to know, like, what he was thinking.
All I know, I think his professor ended up apologizing for the situation. I mean, obviously he had no. I mean, I can't control what one of my students doing that, but I mean that I think they would understand that. Like, dude, boy, I don't. It, I would be flabbergasted. I don't know if you're. I don't know. I don't, dude. I don't know if there's a spot for you on the team. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I just hope I never have to like that goes like I think that's part of culture though too. Like if you prioritize winning so much in competition that it even means beating lower ranks, I don't know. It was bizarre though, but like that's true sandbagging, not just like a D1 college wrestler wearing a white belt who's like dust in the white belt division. You know, that's just he's just not ranked up yet. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what does my viewpoint on sandbagging line up with you guys' opinion?
I I think I'm personally I can't speak for Coach Mo. I'm really close, right? I'm really close with you, Chris. I think you've got if you take someone I always like to use myself, right? I was not competitive in sports, not athletic, not super aggressive, not really violent, and so I just had like I endured in jujitsu partially because I'm brain damaged. I think is what it is, right? Like I just got beat up for so long to where like I got beat up less. But then you have these other people; they are naturally aggressive, not very strong, very athletic, and they have violent tendencies, you know, and they just like embrace it, and they just go, you know, like it's apples and oranges, you know, it's apples and oranges until you that's most represented in those what I'll call the middle belts. Blue. My favorite matches to watch are blue and purple, hands down. Hands down, are they're the best ones to watch because like they're the hungriest, right? White belts are usually just I mean they're either scrambly or just two dudes hanging on each other, and then brown and blacks they're super boring because it's a matter of who makes the first mistake, you know. So,
Mhm.
I my personal opinion is really close to yours. How about yours? How about yours, Professor Muhammad?
I think the older a person gets, assuming that they're consistent in their training, the less time it should be. Granted, you know, people pay you for what you know, not what you could do. So we have a responsibility as coaches to transfer knowledge from one person to another. So if you're really, really good at, you know, doing matches really good, but you can't explain anything you do, I think you have to factor that in. So I think the transfer of knowledge has to be factored in. The age, the older, the less time. But then again, if you do have like a 18 to 21-year-old that's getting 300 days a year of training in, like, you know, competing or not, sometimes you have to factor that in also, you know, because that's not sustainable to train 300 days a year for, you know, 10, 15 years straight. So, but I definitely think it's, you know, unless you're on a 2 day a week plan, you know, 15 years, those days they're done
You
because there's so much.
you were talking. Oh, you're talking about the ranks.
Yeah,
Yeah, the ranks.
yeah, yeah. 2 days a week, like 15 years, those days are gone. But I'm curious to know. I mean, it is so difficult. I don't know how much more you could really push, consolidate the amount of time to get the black belt, unless you're only gauging it on like major tournaments. You know, like any major world tournaments or beating a world champion. But if you're doing that, then you got to know what you're doing.
Well, you touched on a point. It's like there's other factors. You being able to teach, being able to pass your knowledge on. For me, that would be one of the requirements. I've not ranked anyone up at my in my home gym. I don't know if that's something that I'm going to do or not, but if I did, I want you to be able to teach your techniques that I've taught you. I think that's a really great way of showing that you've learned what I've taught and that you know the technique. So that would be one of the criteria. So if you go out there and you're able to beat everyone out, but you can't teach the technique, in my opinion, that you're not ready for the next belt, in my opinion.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate you guys, you know, hopping on, taking the time. We did go over a few minutes. What I'll do is I will share. Like I said, I'll get you some clips of these. We'll chop up, and then you can use them for, you know, redistribute them throughout. The next AGF in Detroit is July, and so you know I'm excited
Oh,
to
so I was
be.
right.
You said what?
I was right. I was just guessing it was
Oh,
July. Is it July?
I'm taking your word. I'm taking your word. So
Hang
maybe
on.
we're both
I
publicly wrong on live. But
I'm about to check.
I will you know I'm excited to be there. I really like the professionalism of it and going to compete, you know, like you know, and it just I'll leave this. You know, I enrolled. It's always tough to get matches at black belts, right? And I remember I had people registered, they ghosted, and then you know, literally, you pulled on multiple occasions. You pulled Mike off. You pulled another killer, some young freaking young kid. I don't even know his name. I just know he was like he had thighs like a horse and was fast. And then there was you know, you literally pulled your refs off to get me match. I'm like, dude, like he didn't have to do that. I kind of felt bad, you know, like but like that's so that we're excited to support you guys and we appreciate your time today. So we'll share this. It's gonna be on YouTube. YouTube, and possibly Instagram if they let us post long form, and Facebook
Okay.
as well. So we'll be sure to tag you guys. And if you haven't checked out AGF tournaments, check them out. It seems like they're national and now international as well. So
May 18th.
May 18th. Yeah, someone corrected. Hey, Bryce is texting you like it's May. It's not July. It's
It
May.
probably
Yes.
is.
All right, May 18th. We'll see you there. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks,
See you,
guys.
Chris.
I appreciate it.
Yep. Take care. Bye.
Bye.